I'm Anthony. I've been playing poker for a living since 2019. Hit that intro.
Don't slow roll me if you get quad fours, man.
You folded King, King, Jack, Jack? You owe me $350. Your money should be in there too.
Did you bluff me?
Would I ever bluff?
I'm leaving that shit. I'm on
No,
tilt.
it's on tilt. Thank you, sir. I would not lie to you, sir. I told you I had a full house. Doing the Lord's work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, this is from the February 2nd PLO stream at Texas Card House in Austin, which just so happened to be my 46th birthday. In this hand, Plojo has brought in pretty loose under the gun +1, holding Queen 8, 8-6, suited in spades to his 8. Kenny, with a middle-gapped 8-high rundown, comes along in the low jack, and in the high jack, I look down at Ace-Ace, 8-4 with 3 diamonds. I just call because these aren't great aces. The gap between the 8 and the 4 to make straights is too large, and I have an extra diamond making it harder to hit my flush. We wind up going 6 ways to a pretty solid flop for me, Ace-7-2 Rainbow. When it checks to me, I bet for half the pot. There aren't really many draws to be concerned with on this flop, and I block them somewhat as well. So ideally, I want someone with the case ace or 2 pair to come along, or to make those chasing any backdoor draws pay something to do so. But I don't want to push them out. I pick up 2 callers in JR, who's flopped middle pair, plus backdoor straight and flush possibilities, and Kenny, who also has middle pair and some backdoor straight possibilities. Then the turn comes the 10 of spades. The board is starting to become far more draw heavy, as now I have to be concerned with a spade flush draw that I don't have any blockers for, as well as multiple straight draws. The vast majority of the deck will bring in a straight of some sort on the river. Any 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, jack, queen, or king on the river make a straight possible. That's a lot of cards to fade, plus any spade that doesn't pair the board. So when it checks to me, it's time to size up. I want to get value with the nuts now, and charge any draws the maximum if they wish to try to get there on me. I bet the full pot of $75, and they both give it up. In this hand, I'm pretty sure the card reader is off because I don't really limp under the gun +2 with an offsuit ace like this, so I believe my ace was suited with another one of my cards here. A bunch of us limp, and Plojo raises from the blinds holding a solid suited ace with Broadway cards. Worldwide figures we're all going high, so he goes low, and Uncle T and JR are both in there with some semi-connected hands as well. Now Plojo was a raiser, and suddenly on an ace-high flop, he's checking to the field. He could certainly do this with pocket aces, since the flop isn't overall very scary if he did flop top set, but when it checks to me, I figure maybe he raised with decent kings in the spot, and he doesn't like the ace-high flop. Whatever the case, having flopped top 2 pair in an already bloated pot, I bet around 2/3 the size of the pot to charge anyone trying to outdraw me, but no one really has anything, so we'll take this one down. In this hand, Huggy wakes up with not great aces under the gun +1 and brings it in. There's multiple callers, and in the big blind we have King King Jack 3, suited in hearts to our king, and we check our option. We go 6 ways to a flop of Queen 10-6 with 2 spades. We flopped an open-ended straight draw, but we don't have the spade draw, so we opt for pot control and check. The entire field checks, and now the king of diamonds hits the turn, giving us top set and the same straight draw we had on the flop, but also bringing in a second flush draw we don't have or block. Surprisingly, Kenny decides to lead from the small blind with his 8-high flush draw. I make the call. Huggy has a gut shot to Broadway in the spot, but only 2 of the jacks are safe cards for him, as the other 2 will bring in flush draws. Granted, he does have the ace of spades, so perhaps he figures if the jack of spades falls, he can apply enough pressure with the naked ace to fold out weaker flushes. Now JR comes out swinging, having turned the nuts straight, but needing to worry about the flush draws and the board pairing. Kenny folds, and I'm pretty confident I'm facing the nuts straight here, but I still have board pairs and chop outs, and I make the call. We go heads up to the river, and the river improves me to the king-high straight when the 9 of hearts falls, but given I did put my opponent on ace-jack, I can't really feel comfortable, and I'm really planning to check and fold to a bet here. JR winds up checking the nuts back, and while it's not caught on the stream, he tells me that was his birthday present to me. There's multiple limpers, and on the button, for some strange reason, I decide to come along with ace-jack 8-4 suited in diamonds to my jack. I don't really like this call, my jack-high flush is too weak, and my card's not connected well enough for me to put money in here, but for whatever reason I do, and we're off to a flop 5 ways. The flop falls 8-3-2 with 2 spades. When it checks to me, I have a spade blocker. I flopped a wheel draw and top pair top kicker. Not strong by any means, but I am on the button, and I have a tight image, and overall the majority of the field have been playing pretty snug. I bet 20, and both Uncle T and Huggy have flopped bottom 2 pair and make the call. The turn is the 10 of hearts, bringing in a second flush draw. When it checks to me, since I'm facing 2 opponents and I'm not really sure where I'm at, I have to slow down and check it back. The river is good and bad, coming the 5 of spades. I've made my wheel draw, but the front door flushes come in as well. When both my opponents check, I opt to check it back. I don't think I can bet enough to force a weak flush draw to fold, and given I'm up against 2 players, I expect one of them will show me a flush here, so I'm pleasantly surprised when my hand is the winner. Alright, I know for a fact the hand reader is way off on this one. It shows me holding ace-10, 5-2 with no suits in the cutoff, when in actuality I held ace-ace, 7-5. We wind up going 7 ways to a flop, which falls ace-8-2 with 2 clubs. D's nuts has flopped top 2 pair and the nut flush draw, and he comes out betting the full pot of 35. In this spot where I have position on him, I just call. I want to see a safe turn card before I start piling in my money with top set, given how deep we are, and if the turn brings in the flush, I want the pot size to not be so large that I can't call a turn bet and try to get there on the river. We go heads up to the turn, which is the 6 of hearts, giving me an open-ended straight draw to go along with my top set. D's nuts bets the full pot of 105 again, and now the pot size is getting large enough that I raise for value and protection from any draws, making it 420 to go. My opponent thinks for a long time before eventually making a really impressive laydown. Looking at the board texture where he has top 2 pair and the nut flush draw, when someone like me is raising, what the hell can I be raising him with? I'm not doing it with a weaker 2 pair, I'm not doing it with a non-nut flush draw, so that really only leaves sets in my range given we've played against one another before. He makes an extremely disciplined laydown here, and I win a nice pot. So this lineup overall has been pretty tight with not a ton of action. Kenny's put the $10 straddle on, and I'm first to act, and I open up my game a bit, raising with 10-8, 7-6 suited in hearts to my 10, from under the gun +1 to $35. This doesn't dissuade anyone as I pick up 4 callers, and we see a flop of Jack 10-6 with 2 spades. Now, generally, this flop texture is going to favor the people calling raises rather than making them, so while I've actually flopped 2 pair, it's still bottom 2 pair. There's flush draws and straight draws to worry about, and I have 4 opponents. With the pot size already bloated, my hand isn't strong enough to commit with, so I check and it's checked around. The turn is an offsuit 4, not changing the board texture, and now Plojo comes out betting a measly $35 with his wrap straight draw. Worldwide with just the overpair of kings calls, but he's drawing dead against the field. Kenny's picked up top and bottom pair and makes the call, and I've picked up a double gutter to go along with my 2 pair, and I call. Huggy has a straight draw as well, so he's not going anywhere either. The river brings in the front door flush and the 7 of spades. Plojo has rivered his straight, but facing 4 opponents while out of position when the flush comes in doesn't feel great, and he checks. Now Worldwide comes out of nowhere, turning his naked second nut flush blocker into a stone cold bluff, shoving all in for close to $200, and he gets it through. I'm under the gun with ace, queen, queen, jack, and no suits. I bring it in, and we wind up going 7 ways to a flop of queen 10-4 rainbow. When it checks to me, I fire 25 into the $35 pot, and I pick up Huggy and Kenny as callers. I manage to get a very safe turn card in the deuce of diamonds. I have a gut shot draw to Broadway, and a blocker to anyone chasing the straight, but I still want to charge them to get there, so I bet 100 for value and protection, and they both give it up. There's a few limpers, and on the button we look down at ace-king, queen-4, double-suited in spades and diamonds, and I opt to raise the full pot to $25. Both JR and Worldwide come along, and we see the world's most amazing flop for me to hit, but maybe not for me to get much action, as it falls ace-jack 10 with 2 diamonds, giving me the nut straight, the nut flush draw, and a blocker to the full houses. Both opponents check, and there's not much reason for me to bet here. I have too much of the board locked up, and I don't want to scare anyone off, so I check it back. The turn improves me to the nut flush, and now Worldwide comes out betting a measly $10. I make the easy call. JR has turned the bottom end of the straight, and he decides to call the small bet as well. The river is the brickest of bricks, falling in offsuit 4, and Worldwide continues betting, putting $50 out. I have to raise, and I think I go too big here, making it $200, although in this instance, no one really had a strong enough hand to call with anyway. All right, this hand is the big one for the night. We're playing a double board bomb pot, and we are holding 9-7, 5-4, no suits. And I see flops of 10-6-3 with 2 clubs and 9-9-8 rainbow. I flop 3 of a kind and some straight draws. But D's nuts in the small blind comes out firing the full pot of 90. In the moment, I was just remembering a hand I had played with him in another room, where he was the 4th all-in pre-flop with Queen Jack 4-2, double suited for $1,000. And he flopped a small pair and rivered a queen to make 2 pair to crack my aces and bust me and 2 other players. And in this hand, I let that recollection cloud my decision making. When he leads into the entire field here from the small blind on these flop textures, I have to step back and think. As you, the viewer, can see, I'm drawing stone dead on the bottom board. He's flopped a full house already, and I have no shot at beating it. I can only make second best. In addition, I have a bit of a wrap straight draw on the top board, but not all of my straight outs are clean. Some bring in flushes or higher straights. So I think my critical decision point and my critical error in this hand is on the flop. I should just be giving my hand up here facing this type of action from the player in the small blind, when I might already be dead on one board. Instead, I make the call, and Huggy with bottom set on the top board comes along as well. And now the absolute worst 2 cards in the deck hit the turns, an offsuit deuce and a 7, giving me the nuts on the top board and the second nuts on the bottom board. This is an absolute disaster for me because now it's going to be virtually impossible for me to get away from my hand. D's nuts bets the full pot of 360. I wind up getting my stack in. You'd think with nut second nut you'd be in great shape, but I'm not. I'm getting free rolled for my entire stack. I have no way to scoop this pot. My best case scenario is we chop it up. And when both rivers bring clubs, my heart sinks as I see my opponent turn over the nut full house and a rivered flush to scoop me for my entire stack on my birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right, well, that stream session didn't go as planned, but I'm no quitter, so be sure to tune in to TCH Live on YouTube tonight, Monday, March 6th at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, as I try to redeem myself on another PLO stream.
You know, after watching a video like this, sometimes I'll like it, sometimes I'll leave a comment, and sometimes I'll subscribe. Sometimes I'll even do all 3.